And welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station. If you're just joining us, we're talking about controlling parents. And I'm pretty sure my dad promised to tell us the magic trick this session, so...
I said later in the session, but yeah, we'll get to it.
Okay. So today, on this session, we're going to be talking about 10 signs early unhealthy control may still affect you.
No, I want to talk about the 10 signs that you may be a controlling parent to your kids.
That's better.
So in raising your children, right, if, number 10, you inflict physical, sexual, verbal, or emotional abuse on your children. Now, you could be doing this consciously or unconsciously, where, one, the physical part, maybe you got spanked when you were a kid, and that was the way that you modeled your parenting style. It's kind of like, hey, because some people justify it with, hey, look, I got spanked when I was a kid, and look, I'm a good guy, I'm a model citizen, right? And so they justify that, hey, sometimes we need a good spanking, and so that becomes one of your parenting styles. So maybe you still pull the belt out and whip your kid, and that's justified for you. But that's basically a sign that there's a good possibility that you could be over controlling your children.
I really like number 9. It says, you see your children's desire for independence as a personal rejection. I think a lot of parents see that, and it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with their kid trying to be their own person and do their own thing. Yeah,
we can love our kids so much that, they're our little babies. I put so much effort into this. I've nurtured you. I spent, when you're a baby, I spent nights, waking up, and I sacrificed so much for you. And there's so much invested in your kid that it's almost like when they want to when they want to leave, or they want to realize how amazing they are so they can start living their own lives, it's almost like it could be a personal threat. If all of your values and everything that you think you are is all put into your children and your children's life, then I can see how that could be a threat to your own character and you not really knowing who you really are. That's why it's important to be continuing to work on yourself as an adult so that you know who you are and it's independent from your child's life. Because you'll find a lot of parents that will find their own worth through their kids and what they're doing. So now all of a sudden, little Johnny's now just realizing, hey, Mom, I want to go off to college, or I want to take off. And you'll subtly hear the parents kind of downplaying it. Well, son, maybe you're not ready, or, and it's like, why would you not be encouraging them, saying, of course you can. Like, I believe in you, and let me know what you need to support you. So, yeah, it's a sign to let you know that, hey, there's a good possibility that there's a controlling parent inside of you, or over-controlling, because that becomes a personal rejection to you, and it's really not anything personal at all.
Right. I also think, I guess this is for parents to hear from the kids' perspective, that we appreciate all those things that you guys do, raising us and feeding us and waking up in the middle of the night and all those things. We appreciate it, but we want to succeed on our own. We want to be somebody outside of our parents, outside of our family. And I think growth happens outside of that because you guys are comfortable for us. You guys are home.
Absolutely.
So as soon as we step out and we do our own thing, so much growth is going to happen, and we're going to be 10, 20 times better versions than we were living back at home.
That's right. I think that at a certain point, home and around your family and around your parents too long becomes an enabling part, where it's kind of like, okay, now I keep making it really easy for you to not get out into this, world where there's risk and reward and challenge. And at a certain point, it could be your little comfort zone.
You know what I also think too, like you were saying, if little Johnny wants to go off to school and, the mom tells him, no, I don't think you're ready. Why don't you stay home a little bit? Now they're 24 and haven't gone to school. They still live at home. And you're telling him he needs to go out, get a job, be independent, get married, have a house, and have all these things. But it's super controlling because you want him to do all of these things, want him to live his life on your time according to your schedule.
Absolutely. Number 8 is believe that you own your children and that they have to earn your love. So there's some kind of idea or concept that I own you. I'm your owner because I created you, because I developed you, because I put so much into you. You belong to me and you have to do what I say. and that, you know, you got to earn the love from the parent based on what you do that I like or appreciate or I agree with.
As a kid, if I ever had the idea that I had to earn your love or mom's love, I think I would be a lot more dysfunctional than I am, or very dysfunctional. I don't think that's healthy at all.
Well, we all have some dysfunctions to some level, but, you know, if you're aware that as a parent that you could be operating like this, and I don't believe that parents consciously, intentively choose to be like that. I think that it's just a part of their unconscious dysfunction that's going on, their own insecurities of not wanting to let go of that control. It's really underneath there is that control. And so it's kind of like, you know, little things that they say, little hints that they drop. You know, when they're dropping little seeds, they're kind of manipulating the way that you're hearing it so that you feel like you have to do certain things to earn my love. And, you know, I'm sure there's countless of families out there and where kids feel like that.
Right. It goes back to manipulating your words so that way it's like you said, it's unconscious, but some people do manipulate their words so that way their kids feel a certain way when they receive that message.
So 10 signs you may be over controlling your children. In raising your children, if you are unwilling to admit your mistakes in parenting. I mean, obviously that's to the extreme because most parents can say, yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes. But, you know, some of these are really to the extreme. But in the extreme, on that scale, are you leaning a little bit towards that side? You know, can you say, hey, I don't have all the answers, which is maybe somewhere in the middle where you're being honest? Or is it, no, I know what's right for you. No, I don't make mistakes. I know exactly what you need. Or at least, you know, you're hinting towards that, you know, you got it all dialed down and you know what's best for your kids. But I think that, you know, it's a great way to open up a possibility that you might be unwilling to admit that you make mistakes in your parenting style.
And number 6 is forbid your children from asking questions or disagreeing with you. I think when you block your kids from disagreeing with you, now you're shutting down not only their opinions, but their beliefs, and they live their life exactly the way you are. And if you think that you're great and everything's great and, you know, you live this really fantastic life, then okay, but wouldn't you want something better for your kids? Wouldn't you want your kids to be just a little more creative than you, a little more open-minded than you, you know? So I think not letting them disagree with you, or like it says, forbidding them to disagree with you is very close-minded and kind of shuts them down.
Yeah, it's like smothers them, and especially their ability to realize that they have the ability to think for themselves or challenge. You know, I think for me, the greatest moment that I can share when it comes to my son is when he was 16 or 17 years old. I think he snapped back at me for the first time, and it was like I saw this. You know, I think he just, you know, because your brother's a real quiet, calm, peaceful kind of guy, and I think he just had a lot of pressures, and whatever I was sharing with him, he snapped. And I remember he looked up at me and he just had this look on his face, and he said something back to me, and inside I was like, good for you, son. Like, that's what I'm waiting for, is for the man to come out of you and start to stand up for yourself and say, hey, this is what I want. And so there's different styles of kids. Some kids, they learn that young. When they're probably 4 or 5 years old, they're already like that. Some kids are real quiet and they're real timid and they respect you, and so they listen. But deep down inside, there's a part of them that they want to say back to you, like, hey, mom, or hey, dad, I disagree with you. And so you got to be willing to give your kids that permission and that space for them to challenge you or disagree with you. But in that same number 6, where it says forbid your children from asking questions, that could also be a part of you that's afraid that you might not have answers, right? And so there's this old axiom, you know, that parents adopt, and that's don't question me, do it because I said so. And I grew up in that era where if you challenged, like, why do I got to do this? Because I said so. And you can, you know, if you're like the Generation X and you grew up like that parenting style with your parents, you can very easily have adopted that, and now you're doing that to your kids, and you teach them when they're little. Well, Daddy, why do we got to do this? Because I said so. You know, with Generation X or Generation Y and the millennials, they need to know why. It's just now part of their DNA. So you really have to reinvent yourself as a parent. Sit down and be patient enough to explain it to them. Once you explain it to them once and they get it, game's over. They're on it. They're whatever you ask them to do, they're probably doing it at 100%. But if you do the whole because I said so, it doesn't make sense to them. They're going to be resisting it.
And like you said, they might be afraid of not knowing the answer. And I think it could be kind of fun to figure out the answer together. And, there's a lot of growth in that. And I also think that kids perceive that or have that experience a little bit better than you just telling them the answer.
How empowering it would it be if you asked your parents a question and they said, you know what, I don't know, but let's discover it together. I'm willing to learn just like you. Wouldn't that be pretty cool?
Yeah, and it'd be a little bit more exciting. Like I said, when receiving the information is a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
Number 5, override, discount, or ridicule your children's strong emotions.
Yeah, I read this book. It was called How to Raise Empowering Kids to Think for Themselves. And really what the whole book was about is allow your kids to have their emotional upsets and let it be okay to let them get that frustration or anger out and let it run its course. In other words, if you're the disruption of them feeling angry or upset or disappointed or mad, and you say, hey, stop doing that, or hey, stop crying, or hey, if you're going to do that, go to your room. If you get in there in the natural flow of letting their emotions come up and you disrupt that, then you start to create that dysfunction. You start to create the belief that it's not okay to feel what I'm feeling. But if you notice that conscious parents that allow their kids, like, okay, if you want to cry, go ahead. It's okay. I know what it feels like to not want to do things that I've been asked to do. And so go ahead and have at it. And so what will happen is the kid will cry for, and you notice this with babies, right? When they start crying, you let them cry. And they basically, some of them, they cry themselves to sleep. But it's natural to have these emotional outbursts. Let it run its course. What will happen is when Johnny's crying and he's making a big fuss, and first it's an hour, and the next time it's 45 minutes, the next time it's 30 minutes, and then 15 minutes. What will happen is as little Johnny starts to develop, he's learning to go through his emotions quicker. Now he can be frustrated and be off it in 2 minutes. Wouldn't it be powerful to now to have Johnny be a young adult in the world? He gets frustrated in his relationships or gets frustrated in his life, and he's learned to be off it in 20 seconds. That's the possibility that you can create for your kids if you create this safe environment to let their frustrations and their self-expression come up and let it run its course naturally rather than you smothering it or putting a hold on it or halting it.
Right. And I think for young men, they have that idea that men can't cry. Their dads or their moms teach them that you have to be, you always have to be presentable and you can't cry and you can't be emotional. And it's really important to let them know that they can.
So check this out. We have 3 minutes and we're not even halfway done with this list. So let's go.
Did we get another secret yet?
I'll let you know. Let's get past this list. So number 4 is if you violate your child's privacy. Now, there's a little bit of a line there. I mean, you don't want to just blindly trust your kids that they're doing what they should be doing. You should kind of be monitoring some of that, especially when they're young. Criticize your children far more than you praise them. If we talked about that earlier about being that inner coach for them, if you're constantly criticizing them, that will be the voice that they hear. But if you're always praising them and you're far often saying, hey, good job, I'm proud of you, they're going to hear that when they're living their life. Number 2 is give affection as a reward, but withdraw it as a punishment. Almost like a leveraging tool. Like, well, if you do good, then you get the goodie and you get my affection. If you did bad, then I'm going to turn my back on you. One of the worst forms of punishment is to ignore somebody. And number 1 is micromanaging their eating, appearance, or their hobbies or social life. So you're sitting there and you're now in control of all of their, basically their whole life, right? All right, now let's get down to the golden goodie. I promised you that I was going to explain to you how you can win the game of control by not surrendering or resisting, by not resisting them controlling you, and then finally surrendering that resistance and then accepting the game. Play the game, right? But inside the game, realize that you have the power to negotiate. you have the ability to sit down and point some things out to them. Your greatest tool is your voice. Find your voice. Your voice is going to be the best tool you have, not only for your family life, but your life out in the world. You have a voice. It's a mighty powerful one. Find it, discover it, and realize that you can sit down with your parents and maybe challenge them a little bit. Hey, you know what? I'm noticing there's a good possibility, Mom, that you could be trying to control me in this situation. But you know what? It's okay. I'm going to go ahead and roll along with it. But I'd like to open up or propose a possibility of, let's create a win-win here. Let's negotiate. I'll do this for you, and then how about you do this for me? Now, in the beginning, your parents probably aren't going to have it, especially if they're controlling. But as you get smarter and more intelligent, especially emotional intelligence, and you start to use your voice more and start to challenge them, something I promise is going to happen. They're going to start realizing that you are holding up a mirror to them, and they're going to see themselves controlling you based on how you're articulating yourself. So the magical tool here, the magical ingredients, is your ability to negotiate. Now, what are you hearing me say?
I'm hearing you say use your voice to stand up for yourself, and
in a powerful way,
of course,
in a respectful way,
right? Stand up for yourself and propose that this is what it looks like. This is what your relationship looks like.
Yeah, Mom.
Here's how I can how we can make it better.
It looks like you're trying to control me right now or manipulate me. That's just my perspective, right? You don't have to tell them, hey, this is what you're doing. This is wrong, da, da, da. But you're kind of breaking down, opening up a possibility that they can't see right now. So the trick is to use your voice to kind of paint the picture for them so they can see themselves in real time. So they go, oh, wow, plant these seeds for them. So when they go to bed at night, they're kind of thinking about it. And they turn to their husband or their wife and go, you know, Christina said that I was, that I'm manipulating her. And now you're actually putting the spotlight on the possibility that they are, and now they can possibly have that breakthrough, make some adjustments. You have a powerful mind. Use your mind and your voice so you can negotiate and win that game inside of their game.
Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. If you're just joining us today, we were talking about controlling parents. Sorry, I got confused. We're talking about controlling parents, and we're going to go over a quick recap.
So we talked about surrender, submit, and stop resisting.
We talked about the quicksand theory. Struggling will only get you more stuck.
We talked about playing the game.
Allowing your parents to control. Don't get tagged or react.
We talked about beating them inside the game. And if you don't know what the game is, you're going to have to listen to the podcast because that's a key distinction there.
Right. We talked about allowing your kids to unfold naturally.
Don't fuel the fire.
Model, don't manipulate.
Is okay good enough for you?
Come from a loving place, not a fearful place.
Listen, don't lecture.
Parents, you become your child's inner voice.
The 10 ways you might be an over-controlling parent.
Make sure you're not shutting down your kids' beliefs.
And the magical ingredients, the power of negotiation. You don't realize how powerful you are with the art of negotiation, do you?
I do. I think I do a little bit.
You're getting better at it.
But I do see a lot of value in using my voice to let people know what it is I want, what I'm looking for. Learning that my voice is important and what I want is also just important as what everybody else wants.
So what are we talking about next week? Next week, we're talking about loving yourself.
Something I think all of us could really use.
Absolutely. It's a great refresher course. I think that the average person believes that they love themselves. If I ask you to rate yourself 0 to 10 in loving yourself, I think 9 out of 10 people would rate a 10. But I need you to be open to the possibility that you don't fully love yourself, and whatever that number you would give yourself, probably take it down 3 or 4 notches. I think that when you really fully love yourself, you free yourself up to be able to empower and inspire and then influence other people, especially your kids. I think self-love is the key fundamental foundation for you to be an extraordinary parent, to being a conscious parent. And a lot of us, we never really got permission to love ourselves, especially if we grew up in some homes where we were, controlled or manipulated or didn't have the space or the room to be able to do that kind of work. And I think that loving yourself is a powerful way to really take yourself to another level of consciousness.
I like how you said that most people would probably rate themselves a 10 when in reality you're probably like a 7 or, lower. I usually try to rate myself a little bit lower than what initially I think, because I know that's just my ego trying not to hurt my feelings.
That's right.
So, naturally I want to say, maybe I love myself at a 9 or 10, but realistically it's probably a 7, which is okay with me because I know that I have to work to get to that 10. I know that there's always going to be something that can be done to move up to the next level.
The cool thing about this topic, loving yourself, I'm going to be actually speaking about this topic next Tuesday night at the SEV Women's Empowerment Group that I, frequently do workshops and do lectures. So those of you that are listening that are part of that group, be prepared that next Tuesday night we're going to be really breaking down the distinction of self-love, and I think you're going to get a real treat, and it's going to be a huge wake-up call and a powerful realization for those women that attend Tuesday night.
And if you're not in that group, it'd be a really good idea to come through.
6:30 every Tuesday night at the Savia Community Center in Newhall.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us today on My Conscious Dad with me, Jasmine Urbina, and my dad, Alex Urbina. We're here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.